iHub Radio, reinventing talk radio in the Coachella Valley. Homemade for the rest of us. Live from Palm Springs, the intersection of arts, entertainment, and the desert scene. This is The Culture Corner with Bonnie Gilgallon.
And happy Saturday afternoon to you. Welcome to The Culture Corner on iHub Radio. We're still in the midst of this lockdown, this pandemic. I know everybody's going a little bit stir crazy, trying to keep it all together and be kind to each other, which I know is, for some folks is getting tougher and tougher to do. It's really important that we, first of all, think outside the box and think about someone other than yourself. That's something that I think a lot of people are struggling with, just from the larger picture of wearing a mask when you go out and social distancing and all of that. Even if you're young and healthy and think you're going to be fine, even if you get this virus, but you might have it and pass it on to someone else older and sicker who won't be fine. So we've got to think about other people. And just thinking about people that you know who are alone, who are locked down by themselves in the middle of this whole thing and don't have spouses, partners, sons, daughters, family, dogs, cats to keep them company. Checking on folks like that, especially if they're older and have health issues, is really reaching out and thinking about other people other than yourself. I know a lot of people are doing that, but I just hope that everyone can kind of factor that in. And again, I'm hoping that people are finding the silver linings in this whole mess, which is a couple of them. One is it's a break. It's a rest. It's a time to slow down, take care of yourself, slow down the pace of running, really working on self-care, taking a nap when you feel like you need one, working out with your home gym or create a home gym, taking walks. It's okay to take walks. If you get close to any other people, put your mask on, but walk your dog, get out in nature. Finish some of those creative projects that you've put on hold. That book you always wanted to write, or that painting you always wanted to paint, or you wanted to learn a new language. Now's a good time to do it. Do that yard work, clean out your garage, but find those silver linings in the middle of this. So we're hoping to talk to Erica Stone. I don't know. We're having problems connecting with her. But Erica Stone is someone who I've interviewed many, many times. I've known her for several years now. And she's one of those people who has really gone out of her way to help other people. She put together this organization called SOS, which stands for Soldiers Organized Services. Her late dad was in the military, and she one time was at the Palm Springs airport, this was years ago, and noticed a Marine sitting there in uniform with his duffel bag or whatever, kind of sitting there, and started talking with him, and turned out he had just gotten him on the plane, arrived from the plane, and didn't have any way to get to the 29 Palms Marine Base, and didn't have money for a cab, and just didn't have anywhere to get there. Well, she decided she had some time and had a car, so she drove him, and a light bulb went on in her head, and she said, you know what? There must be other soldiers and Marines who need the same service. It's very expensive to take a cab from the airport to almost anywhere. And these soldiers have put their lives on the line and done so much for all of us. Why not create an organization that can at least do that much for them, give them a ride, give them a free ride from the airport to the Marine base, et cetera, or even other places. So she put together this organization and called it SOS. And now she has a whole army of volunteers who drive, who help pick people up. And now she's done, because things have changed with this lockdown, as they've changed with all of us. Just to read something, the email she sent out. With a Marine Corps base on lockdown, you might think that SOS has been idle. On the contrary, we've simply turned our sights toward helping our veterans while the active duty Marines cool their heels. A core group of active volunteers have been keeping busy, helping veterans in need with running errands, grocery shopping, light cleaning, picking up prescriptions, or just checking in and making sure they have everything you need. So, and she says, in fact, if you know someone in need, whether you just bring them a bouquet of flowers and a gloves and mask, of course, or somebody that needs something fixed, A majority of our volunteers are seniors. They're a dynamic bunch, and they don't want to sit around. So they found a way to keep helping, even in the midst of this pandemic. So their next big golf fundraiser has been postponed until September 24th, which is actually Erica Stone's birthday. We'll wish her a happy birthday when we get close to that. So now they're putting together a GoFundMe page, and she's hoping that people will share that. The goal is to generate at least $5,000, but they're hoping to surpass that. So I would check out the SOS. Let's see, eStone at sosride.org, e.stone at sosride.org. And you can find out the GoFundMe page and maybe help them out. Either volunteer to do some driving, do some errands for somebody that needs it, or just volunteer some money. They're trying to generate $5,000 because they have to buy vehicles. They have to have vehicles, and the vehicles sometimes break down. I know a couple of years ago, I think they had one vehicle stolen, which was awful, so they had to replace that. So it does take money to keep this organization rolling and keep the wonderful work that they do active, providing rides from these Marines from the airport to the Marine Corps base, etc. So anything that you can do to help. I know a lot of people now are taking this time also to look into how they can help. How can we all be of service to each other, whether it's making masks, volunteering to make masks, cut fabric, drop masks off at hospitals, etc., go grocery shopping for someone who can't get out, those kinds of things. There's a way to help. I mean, we're all in this together, and we need to find ways to reach out to others and think outside the box and help us all get through this. Eventually, this will end, and we'll get back to, I don't like to use the word normal, because I don't think we're ever going to get back to quote unquote normal. And I'm not sure that the normal we were at before this all happened was all that great, to be honest with you. There were some things that needed changing. So I think the new normal is going to look a little bit different when we, start opening things up. And I encourage people. I know everyone's getting antsy and wants to get out, but to do it safely and slowly and using your head. When you go out to the store, put your mask on, put your gloves on, keep the social distancing. Don't unnecessarily put yourself or anybody else at risk. And I think that some innovative things are going to come out of this. I really think drive-in movie theaters are definitely going to come back. How great is that? You pull up in your car, and your car is parked, 5 or 6 feet away from the next car. You can sit there and watch a movie and have refreshments and that kind of thing. Drive-in concerts we've talked about. I've talked with my partner Eric and a number of other people, having people drive up and again space out at a big field, a big arena, and have a band or entertainment on the stage, but not sitting elbow to elbow. I think there are a lot of innovative things. I know Eric, my partner's last night went to play the electric piano, outside of Cuisto, which is the high-end French restaurant in Palm Desert. He plays during the season every Thursday and Friday there. So he's been playing outside in front on the sidewalk in front of the restaurant where people come and pick up their to-go orders. And they're having music while they drive up, pick up the to-go orders, listen for a minute, and drive away. And it's worked out really well, and people are really enjoying that. So I think that might become more of a regular thing at other restaurants besides Cuisto. And I know there have been a couple places like Frankie's. We love Frankie Mamoni over at Frankie's Italian Bakery. Eric and I did a show there, socially distanced, just the two of us, and Frankie and Luca in the back of the room. I know a number of other singers have done that. Christy King's done it, John Spinks, a number of people, Marsha Harp. And I think there might be, stay tuned, there might be a special Mother's Day show. I think maybe this evening, we'll see. Still working on details out on that. But there's all kinds of ways to stay entertained. Of course, there's Netflix and streaming movies and the internet and all kinds of stuff. Luckily, there's a lot more media we can take advantage of for entertainment than, say, 30, 40, 50 years ago. But reach out to friends, do Zoom calls, do Skype calls, email folks, call people, text people, private message people, that send a Facebook message to people that maybe you haven't touched base with for a while. So, find out how they're doing. If you have an aunt or an uncle or grandparent that lives, many states away, call them, text them, email them, set up a Zoom call, and just see how they're doing and touch base. There are a lot of ways to stay in contact with folks other than sitting next to them and hugs and all that kind of stuff. So again, Erica Stone, check out Soldiers Organized Services, and you can email her at e.stone@sosride.org, and maybe ask her about the GoFundMe page. I mean, this GoFundMe address is really long, so I'm not going to try to read that to you because it goes on forever. But that's a great way to help some other folks reach out and help. And be kind to each other. I know there's a lot of politics going on right now, and this whole pandemic, there's the separate issue of the pandemic and people tragically dying and being very sick, and doctors and nurses on the front lines, and bus drivers, and then there's the whole political side. And I know it's really tempting to jump into that and point the finger and get in wars with people, but I'm just not sure how, I don't think how productive that is. And I've tried to steer away from that. Every now and then I can't help myself and maybe put something, but I try to stay away from that because you're not going to change anybody's mind, I don't think, at this point, and I'm not sure how productive it is. So I think the more we stay positive and the more we look, how can we help other people stay connected in whatever ways you can, safely, physically distanced, stay out of political wars. Don't watch 4 and 5 hours of news. Yes, you want to keep up on what's going on, you want to stay informed, but there comes a point, and you can feel it. You can feel, okay, I've watched an hour, there's half an hour, it's time to turn off the TV, listen to some music, go walk around the block, or even put on a movie and something other than news. Because after a while, it just gets in your blood and your brain and your heart and your soul, and it's a little depressing. So, and listen to the radio. iHub Radio is a lot of digital stations, a lot of podcasts out there that you can listen to. We're going to talk to, of course, my board op Brian, Brian Mendoza has his own movie show on Saturday mornings. We're going to talk to him in the last segment today about, we'll talk a little bit later on about kids and how this pandemic is affecting them. And we're going to talk a little bit about kids' movies. But, watch a movie. Watch a movie. Let's see, what did we watch the other day? Eric and I he saved a lot of things. We watched Three Coins in the Fountain, which is really old. I think that was the 50s, 60s. Gene Simmons, the young Gene Simmons, it was really interesting. But we've got a lot of movies saved, Animal House and that kind of thing. But don't watch disaster movies. Don't watch slasher murder movies. And one of the things he had saved was The Boston Strangler. I don't want to watch that. It's too depressing. I'm going to try to... although sometimes I break my rule with Dateline. When there's a new Dateline, it's hard to resist watching that. I just love the journalistic side of it because I did news for so long, and the drama and the psychology. But hang in there, everybody. We've got to hang in there. Could be worse. Could be a lot worse. Stay healthy. Monitor your own health. Okay, I think we're coming up on a break in just a minute here on the Culture Corner on iHub Radio. When we come back, we're going to talk to Ann Sheffel from the Palm Springs Cultural Center. We'll be right back on the Culture Corner.
Local talk that's moving the needle. Art exhibitions to modernism, music festivals to live theater. If it's happening in the Coachella Valley, it's on the Culture Corner with Bonnie G.
And welcome back to the Culture Corner on iHub Radio. We're now joined by Ann Sheffel, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, who is the Secretary of the Board of Directors of the Palm Springs Cultural Center. Hi, Ann, how are you?
Okay, and you?
Pretty good. So let's talk about the Palm Springs Cultural Center. I think some people might not know, it used to be the Camelot Theaters. It's over there on, what is it?
Ramon.
Ramon, yes, Ramon. So when did it officially become the Cultural Center?
A couple of years ago, as you know, the Camelot Theaters belong to a couple named the Sheffels,
Right.
who've been very generous with lots of cultural organizations around town. They gifted the building to this new organization called the Palm Springs Cultural Center because in addition to the movies, and we have 3 movie theaters, we have recently converted one of them into a venue for live theater.
Mm-hmm.
And we're hoping to continue in that direction. Coyote Theater was about to open a play called Velocity of Autumn when we had to shut down the building.
Right.
The set is still waiting on stage for us to be able to start up again. And we really have great plans to expand into live performances.
That is so great. Yes, and I saw the Doll's House Part 2 there.
Right, with
Chuck.
wonderful.
It was fabulous. Yeah, fabulous. And that theater just works really well. How big of a job was it to convert that one theater?
We did a sort of quickie version, which meant that we took out some of the seats so we could extend the stage out. We created an opening so that you can go backstage, which you don't need to do in a movie. And it turns out that we have enough room backstage for a sort of green room, dressing room. So, but we have plans that have been drawn up to, right now it's 140 seats. We have plans to make it about 200. It's hard to describe this on the radio, but we're going to turn it sideways and bump out the wall so that the stage is on the right-hand side as you would walk into this theater.
Okay, gotcha.
And then it would have dressing rooms and classrooms and all the things that you need. But actually, Coyote Theater did a superb job with the very first play there, in spite of the fact that we actually got the stage finished 2 days before their opening, and then they put the set on it, and we were all ready to go. So
wow, yeah. Well, I tell you what, you
job.
would never have known that it was that to the wire because I thought the set was beautiful and it worked so well with that production. It really did. So are you anticipating? Are you anticipating? So this is going to be Coyote Stage Works' new home, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And we're hoping some other theaters will come in also when they see this great facility. For example, Des Art, which performs at the Palm Springs Women's Club,
right,
with a very makeshift stage that they have to strike the set after every weekend, even if they're doing the play for another week. So we think that they would be much better off in a built-for-purpose theater.
Oh, that's great. And that's what I was going to ask you if other theaters were going to come in. Super. And then now, do you also occasionally have lectures and other kinds of cultural events besides movies and plays?
Yes. The facility is used by a lot of nonprofits. For example, the Desert AIDS Project has a big event in the 500-seat theater called it honors the volunteers, Everyday Heroes.
Oh, great!
And there's a lot of visuals and videos, but live people standing on the stage.
Great, super. That's great. And now, so do you have specific plans in mind? I know a lot of people think it's a little too early for, some people are taking baby steps out and with, opening things up. But theater's tough, although small. I think smaller theaters are going to do better than large. But what are you seeing or what are you hearing about any plans in place or thoughts about how down the road the cultural center is going to reopen?
Well, first of all, I'm afraid that live theater and even movies are going to be one of the last things that can be adapted to the coronavirus, because the essence of live theater is that you are in an audience with other people and there's something live going on stage.
Right.
A lot of theaters, in order to keep in touch with their subscribers and sort of keep the spirit alive have been streaming versions of plays that they've done, which is a little difficult with copyright and rights to things.
Yeah.
There's also been some really fascinating discussions with directors and playwrights, and when it's a musical, the composers, about how the show came together, and those have been fun. But this need to be in the same space. So we actually do have an idea for.
I'm so sorry we're running out of time, but thank you so much, Ann Sheffel, and all the great work you do at the Palm Springs Cultural Center. Looking forward to having it reopen and see some great shows there. And stay safe, and thank you so very much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and we're still serving popcorn if you want to come by and pick up some to stream movies.
Great. Thank you so much. I might do that. All right, we'll be right back on the Culture Corner.
Local talk that's moving the needle. Art exhibitions to modernism, music festivals to live theater. If it's happening in the Coachella Valley, it's on the Culture Corner with Bonnie G.
And we are back on the Culture Corner on iHub Radio. We're now joined by, I'm so excited to, I've known of this talented woman and writer for a long time and never had a chance to interview her. But we have Maggie Downs on the phone. Hi, Maggie. How are you?
Hi, Bonnie. I'm great. How are you?
Good. So a lot to talk about with you. First of all, you were for years a columnist at the Desert Sun. Now you're not still contributing to them, are you? Or I wasn't clear on that.
No. I left the Desert Sun in 2010, but I still write for Palm Springs Life magazine, and I write for other publications.
Okay, and I was looking at your bio. You've written for the LA Times, Newsweek, Eating Well, Cincinnati Enquirer, a lot of places. And but I really wanted to get into, you have a brand new book out. Is this your first book?
It is. And what a time to be a debut writer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's called Braver Than You Think, Around the World on the Trip of My Mother's Lifetime. And I'm fascinated by this. I was reading about the book, and it just kind of blew me away because what spurred you? Well, tell everybody kind of the theme of the book and what moved you to write it.
Sure. My mom was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease when she was in her late 50s, and that was really hard for me as a daughter to come to terms with, both becoming a caregiver for my mom for a while, and then also watching her decline, and then considering my own mortality and if I would get the disease someday. And I knew there were a lot of things my mom had always wanted to do, a lot of places she wanted to visit, a lot of goals she wanted to achieve, and she put them off, and she never had a chance to do them. And when she was in the final stages of Alzheimer's, I thought, this is how I can honor her. I can take this trip around the world and do the things she never had the opportunity to do. And at that point, she was too far gone in Alzheimer's, in her decline, so she didn't know that I was taking the trip. But I made this journey solo, and it was more of my way of honoring her and also mourning her because I knew her death was coming. So I traveled to South America, Africa, and Asia over the course of a year and did the things that my mom always talked about doing.
That is so great. I mean, what a great, and the reason that this really struck home with me, my mom passed from Alzheimer's. It's been almost 9 years now. She was much older. She developed it in her very late 70s. And she was on the East Coast with my father, so I didn't spend a lot of time with her. I saw her a few times. But it's a very difficult thing to do and watch as a child. And you do mourn the things on her. She was in the middle. She was a writer herself, and she was about to teach a class at a local community college on how to write your own life story. But when she started declining, and then she had a stroke, and she never got to do that. So what a great way to honor your mother. What did you learn about yourself during this journey?
That's a great question. There were things that I realized I was putting off myself, some things that I put off in my own life. And I realized, I'm doing the same thing that my mom did. I assumed there would be time later, to do things. And I think that's really hitting home for people right now during the pandemic is like all these things we think about doing and then now we can't. And so we're stuck in that phase of like, once we get out of this, I'm going to do this. Well, why weren't we doing it before, Right. So I think that was the biggest thing I learned was to make memories while I still can. And then it also, traveling also made me realize how much I wanted to become a mother myself.
Mm. And you have a son now, correct?
I do. Yeah. He's 5 now.
Yeah. And, wow. And tell me about traveling solo. That's something I've never really done is travel, to many different places solo. Was that, was that experience what you expected it to be?
It was really scary because I had not traveled much until I took this trip. So I didn't even know if I could do it, and I don't really speak any other languages. So I thought I might be home in 2 weeks, who knows? and then it took me a while to figure out just what kind of traveler I am and how to make my way in the world and how to be more assertive. And then also, one thing I really love about solo travel is that it's very humbling. It forces you to ask questions of people. Mm-hmm. It forces you to be vulnerable, and you have to be very open and engage with strangers. And those were all uncomfortable things for me, and they're things I learned how to do, and I'm really grateful that I had that experience.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And so tell me about, I love the title of this book, Braver Than You Think. And you said that something that your mother used to tell you, you are braver than you think, which is for me, what a wonderful thing for a parent to tell a child. I wish I had heard that younger because I was not brave for a very, very, very long time. How important was that mantra for you?
It was important for me when I was a little girl, and that's one of the scenes in my book is that my mom would send me off to school and say, "You're braver than you think you are," and so it's something that I recalled a lot while I was traveling because there were situations where, like I was attacked by a monkey when I was in the jungle in Bolivia. I was stuck in the Arab Spring, and, there were all these things happening around me that were very intimidating and sometimes overwhelming and very scary. And that did become my mantra, and it really got me through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what did both your three things, this long trip, writing the book, and your experience with your mom and dealing with her Alzheimer's, how do you think all those things shaped you and helped you become into the experience of being a mom yourself?
Yeah. So when I took this trip, I was doing it out of such profound grief that I didn't really think about writing a book at that point. Mm-hmm. And then the experience of travel and also just seeing my mom's decline and meeting other people who had loved ones with Alzheimer's, it made me realize that this was a story that I think people needed to hear because it is a very grim diagnosis. There's nothing pretty about dementia, no. But being able to take something motivating and inspiring from it and very life-affirming, I think that became really important to me. And then all of those lessons are things that I try to teach my son today. I really want to pass along a curiosity for the world. Also, I think storytelling is so important in connecting people. So we spend a lot of time making up our own stories and writing down things. I just gave my son his first journal, even though he's 5 and I have to help him with the words. I think he likes to write things down. And so I think that's really important too, is capturing all of those memories.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love what you said. I think you're absolutely right about this pandemic making all of us, well, you don't have any choice, but, sit back, stop, rest, recharge, and look at yourself and your life and where you're going, even maybe if you didn't want to, and think about, what is it that I still want to do that makes you think about your own mortality, not only because so many people are getting sick and dying, but just, okay, now we're stopping here. That's like the life's been put on hold to some degree. How do I want to continue? What do I want to change when things kind of gear up again? And it really makes you look at that stuff. Has that, do you have a new book and you're thinking about a second book right now?
I had planned to write the proposal for my next book in the days leading up to releasing this book. But my second book is all about travel as well and plans for travel. So that has to be put on hold right now. And I'm working on some other types of writing. I have a screenplay that I'm working on and some other things that I'm kind of digging into. But, this, I think, what you were saying is exactly correct. It really prioritizes things for you, even though it's a forced prioritization. This situation is forcing all of us to think about like what's important to me and what's the first thing that I'm going to do and like what's the legacy that I want to leave, And so I'm trying to work on some of those things that I can do at this point.
And tell me about your. I'm not the writer you, but I write theater reviews for CV Independent. I do a little bit of writing. And I always like to ask other people about your sort of process. Are you somebody who says, okay, I'm going to sit down at the computer from, 10 to 1 and write? Or do you wake up at 3 a.m. with ideas, or is it kind of a combination?
I know so many writers who set like word goals for the day or page goals. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a person who can sit down and write every day, even though I try to. And as a freelancer, usually I have some deadlines coming up with articles I'm writing and things I'm working on. And that I consider work, and I can sit down and work on that in a chunk of time. But as far as the bigger, more creative work like this book, I'm more of a binge writer. And so there were times where I would just check into a hotel or go away for a few days and like borrow a friend's cabin or something like that. And I would write like 50 pages at a time. Mm-hmm. So that was very cathartic for me, getting it out in that way. And I no longer feel like I have to be a person who reaches a certain word goal every day, because I know it'll get out of me eventually.
Yeah. Okay. And so go back for a minute. Did you always know that you wanted to write from real young? Did you start writing really young?
Oh, absolutely. I was creating like magazines for my Cabbage Patch dolls. So I was writing from as long as I can remember. Mm-hmm.
And what's other than you're doing articles regularly to other places like LA Times, Newsweek still at this point, or Palm Springs Life, yes?
Yeah, I do a lot for Palm Springs Life. And then I have essays that have run in the New York Times and the Washington Post. And I write a lot of literary essays that appear in some more literary journals, things like that. And then I have, bigger projects that it's hard because nobody is seeing them on a regular basis. So it's hard to feel like I'm still writing, if people aren't seeing it, but it's all the behind the scenes work for larger pieces.
And when I'm looking at your bio, let's see if I got this right. You had a short fiction thing called The Frequent Flyer that won an award in 2013, a short story, is that right?
Yeah. I don't write a lot of fiction, but that was while I was getting my Master of Fine Arts. I wrote some short stories.
Where can people find your book? Where can they find it?
It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org. It's anywhere you can find it, or you can find more at maggiedowns.com.
Okay, braver than you think, Maggie Downs. Thank you so very much for being here. I'm going to get the book. It sounds fabulous.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
All right, stay safe, and we will be back with more on the Culture Corner in just a moment.
Local talk that's moving the needle. Art exhibitions to modernism, music festivals to live theater. If it's happening in the Coachella Valley, it's on the Culture Corner with Bonnie G.
And welcome back to the Culture Corner on iHub Radio. I wanted to talk a little bit in this last segment about kids and how, I was thinking about this the other day, how this pandemic and this stay-at-home order is affecting children. And if you think about how antsy it's making adults, and some adults are starting to get really cranky and meltdown, I think about these poor kids who don't really totally probably understand what's going on and why this is all happening, but not going to school, not being able to run around on the playground with their friends, not being able to have play dates or baseball games and all that stuff, having parents stay home and homeschool them, which I think is good to some degree, but I'm sure there are some parents that are better at homeschooling than others. So sometimes all this closeness can also create tension. So I worry about the kids, and I want to talk a little bit about that. I want to talk to Brian in just a second about movies, but I wanted to read a little bit of something. One of the things, many hats I wear is I coach voiceover students, so I teach them how to do voiceovers, how to do radio commercials and narrate books. And I have a little segment from a children's book that I use with my students that I wanted to just read because I think it's something that might be helpful for all of us right now to stay centered and think about what matters. It's a little piece from The Velveteen Rabbit, which is a great book. "What is real?" asked the rabbit one day when they were lying side by side near the nursery fender before Nana came in to tidy the room. "Does it mean having things that buzz inside you and a stick-out handle?" "Real isn't how you are made," said the skin horse. "It's a thing that happens to you. When a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play with, but really loves you, then you become real." "Does it hurt?" asked the rabbit. "Sometimes," said the skin horse, for he was always truthful. "When you are being real, you don't mind being hurt." "Does it happen all at once, like being wound up?" he asked, "or bit by bit?" "It doesn't happen all at once," said the skin horse. "You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't happen often to people who break easily or have sharp edges or who have been carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off, and your eyes drop out, and you get loose in the joints and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you are real, you can't be ugly, except to people who don't understand." I love that piece. And we don't care about the people who don't understand. Real is important, and being real and loving your kids and loving each other. So Brian Mendoza is here. He's my board op, and he's wonderful, but he also has his own film show. So I asked Brian I wanted to chat a little bit about some of your favorite movies for kids, and that might be good things to stream if you can find them. So what'd you come up with, Brian?
Well, obviously, there's Disney Plus, where that you can watch any film on Disney, made by Disney on Disney Plus, and I think that they make such great movies. And some of my favorites include Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Fantasia, Pinocchio. Those are the reliable ones. Beauty and the Beast. Those are great, and I honestly recommend that parents revisit those movies along with their kids because they'll feel great afterwards, and they still hold up. They have great music and great animation. A lot of those movies hold up really well. Even Frozen 2 is a really good one. So you'll rarely find any real bad movies on Disney Plus, and they also have The Sound of Music on there too.
Oh, great. Yeah. And Fantasia. Wow. What a great piece of entertainment Fantasia is. I mean, not just the animation, but the music and gosh, I haven't seen that in so long. I'm going to have to watch that again. Just amazing. And how long is Fantasia? I don't recall. Is that an hour or two? How long is that?
It's funny you say that because its length is actually one of the things that some people have noticed about that. It's 2 hours, and it's the longest of the animated Disney movies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what about I'm putting you on the spot here, but I know you're a big movie buff. What about non-animated stuff? Anything else? What other things have you seen that you love that would be appropriate for kids? Do you think that might be great to revisit?
I would say there's a new streaming service coming out on May 27th. It's a few weeks away, called HBO Max. And they're going to have Warner Brothers movies. And one of my favorite ones, actually my favorite all-time movie, The Wizard of Oz, will stream on there. So May 27th, The Wizard of Oz, and then another movie that streams on there would be Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
You know, I've never seen that all the way through. I've seen bits and pieces of it, but I've never seen the whole thing. Of course, The Wizard of Oz we've all seen 100 times. And what a, I mean, of course, one of the things about The Wizard of Oz, I mean, it was groundbreaking on many levels, but I think that was the first time. Now, I know it was the first time ever in a film that started in black and white and went into color. But wasn't that one of the first times color was ever used, wasn't it?
Yeah, on both accounts, it would be one of the first times, but I think it's the most famous film to utilize those techniques, because the black and white to color, it's been used in films before, but the reason why they're not brought up often is because those films, they lost their color sequences over the years. Like The Women with Joan Crawford had a color sequence in it, but they lost it throughout the years. So when you watch it on DVD, it's just a black and white movie all the way through, no color at all.
Now tell us a little bit about, I don't know how much you know, but I know very little about the tech. How does that, when you say color sequence, so how does that happen? Why does that happen, that it would lose it? Do you know? It's
honestly because, I mean, if you think about it, in the 30s, no one thought about preserving movies. They thought, okay, it's going to be in the movie theater for a couple years, and that's it. And that's the same. You ever notice why a lot of soaps are lost? It's the same logic, is that they felt that no one's going to want to revisit these. And unfortunately for soaps, no one's going to, you can't find those anymore. But we still have some classic movies. And but we do lose some movies and some sequences, unfortunately.
What was do you know any were there any others besides The Women and Wizard of Oz that did the black and white 2-color thing?
Oh, you know it's funny you bring that up. The Phantom of the Opera, the 1925 version, did that. The Mask of the Red Death scene or something like that.
Okay.
That scene right there is in color, and you can still find it. I think I'm not entirely sure where it's streaming at, but they do have like free copies on YouTube, so if anyone wants to see it, it is on there, and there is a color sequence, but it's very weird because it's only really 2 colors, because it's a 2-color strip, so they can only, it's a bunch of colors, but it's very greens and reds.
Okay,
it's kind of weird.
What was the first official film that actually used color or Technicolor, I guess, if you will?
That's actually a really good question, because every day I find a new contradiction of that answer. It's crazy. But you know what? I think Becky Sharp probably was, because it was the first one to use 3-color Technicolor. And that's a movie from 1935. Okay. All right. And what some people say it's something else. Some people say it's another movie that actually used it first. Yeah, there's like people out there saying, well, the first one, like an animated movie, would be the first, I guess, in their mind, or like a movie that used it for 5 seconds or 5 minutes in one movie. It's kind of a debate, and movies get lost, so unfortunately you lose out too. Yeah. Well, Brian, thank you. You're always a wealth of knowledge when it comes to films. I love chatting with you. Thank you so much to Ann Sheffel from the Palm Springs Cultural Center and Maggie Downs. And thank you, Brian. Everybody, please stay safe, and we'll talk next week.